Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In today's episode of Garden Ramblings, I'm going to tour the garden, focus on warm weather crops. I really put in a lot of tomato and pepper plants. We'll be talking about those. But before we get started, I just wanted to show you the garden, how it looks now, because it's a mess, and that's okay. I've been talking about that in the past, but sometimes the goal is just to get the plants in place, worry about the mess later. That's slug bait. Because I got lazy, missed my routine of putting down the slug bait, I had a slug and snail outbreak that took care of some of my crops, specifically kohlrabi that I just put in. But look at the mess. Normal, okay. My garden looks like this, not all the time, but fairly often. You can see those are seed cell containers that I just crunched. You can see that it's a mess. My goal was, around this rain, to get in here and to really get what I wanted planted. Doing a little bit of mulching, but when I'm done, when the weather is right, etc., when the stars align, I'll clean this place up. I'm going to do the rest of the tour after I've cleaned it up because I'm just about done. But I wanted you to see what a normal working garden looks like. It's in pretty good shape, but it's a mess. We've had really hot weather. Last week, got into the 80s for like 7 consecutive days. All the stuff you see on the ground was really trying to protect the cool weather crops. Some of them over here, some of the protection worked, but a lot of my crops bolted. All the radishes are spicy, they're, kind of fibrous, they're just not good. You can see the broccoli's all bolting in there. Shade cloth has been on for weeks. It just got too warm. But I did want to kind of just stress the mess with the idea that I don't want you guys to get stressed out because we have only so much time. A lot of us have to work other jobs, or maybe 2 jobs. We have family, we have kids, we have all that stuff going on. Generally speaking, your garden's always a work in progress. Getting some bell peppers in, all the weeds that I pulled out will get composted later. So we're finally through what the garden looks like now. And look at those strawberries real quick. I'll be showing those off, but they're just beautiful. That's massive. So we'll be doing the rest of the tour after I finish up, clean up the place, but I wanted you just to see what it looks like when it's actually an active garden. So a day later, a ton of rain. Let's go back in. I got a lot done. It's been raining like crazy here. So we'll walk through. I did put down some mulch. I'm going to be bringing more in. It looks really good. It's a shredded hardwood mulch. Blueberries, been talking about these. I have my plants planted pretty closely together. I don't know, maybe that's 3 feet. I can't even remember, maybe 16 plants. But mix up the varieties. You want different varieties to help with pollination, but you also want the early, mid, and late maturing varieties so that you get a longer harvest. They're doing really well. People always ask, what do you do for these? I have a soil pH, more clay soil, about a 7. Blueberries like something lower, 6 below. I just use a liquid soluble fertilizer that has acidity. About twice a year, fall, spring, keeps the acidity around the base of the blueberries. That helps them pull in nutrients, and they're doing really, really well. I mean, just take a look at some of the blueberries on there. We'll be walking by them, but they're all loaded with, obviously, blueberries. People also ask me, don't birds come and take them? Well, I've overplanted just to give enough to nature, but I really don't have birds that come in here and bother these. I have bird feeders everywhere. So it does depend on the variety of bird that comes through or the species of bird that comes to your area, but so far so good. These are my pepper plants that I grew early, sometime late December, January, and then I overwintered them in the sunken cold frame, and they were in these pots. They have massive root systems. These are going to be producing bell peppers and I think shishitos by the end of May. And the whole idea was I focused on bigger root systems, let them establish. Now it went from being like 85 during the day, 60s at night, it's 48 degrees at night, 50 degrees during the day. So things got a little bit colder, but as soon as the temperatures get right, these are just going to take off. And this year I've been really focusing on growing bigger root systems of my plants rather than more canopy. For years I was thinking, a 2-foot tomato transplant is better, but not when it has that little tiny root ball. Strawberries doing extremely well. Muscadines, a lot of these I talked about in my last video, but I wanted to show you just how beautiful the strawberries are. Look at this massive one. That's the one I showed just before the end of the first part. I mean, that's awesome. Look, it's slug damage already, so I'm gonna harvest that and cut that off. Things are coming in nicely. Collards, endive, right in there. Kale, I've been harvesting this. It's only 3 plants, 1 kale, 2 endive actually, and this is collards. And I also have Swiss chard in there. Tucked in my peppers, I'm only putting 3 in there this year. And they're a little kind of beat up, a little bit yellow looking. All those bigger leaves, they're gonna just get dropped. And all the new leaves are coming in. But pretty soon, these peppers are gonna be, you know, really large. I harvest this area a lot. 2 people in my current family under the household, but I have, you know, kids and all that. But I can't keep up with the collards, so don't overplant. If I had 3 collards in here, I just have a whitefly infestation because I can't pick the leaves and eat it quick enough. So don't overplant. It's really just not necessary. When the plants are tiny, I get it. We want to plant everything that we seed start. I tend to overdo it. The towers are looking good. Gonna have strawberries for breakfast. It's about 7:30 a.m. right now. We're going to just take a quick look at the masses of blueberries. And I am not doing anything special with these. I mean, it's just massive amounts. Blackberries look good. So we're going to spin around. Today we're going to have my shadow in the video, because if I go the other way, the sun being low in the sky really creates a glare on the lens. But look at this path now. This is Plant Expert mulch, which I love. Get it from my local hardware store. There's a bluebird. I'm gonna just use this for now on. I love this. I don't like the hardwood over there. I haven't put it down on that side. I'm gonna be doing that over the next couple of days. I just like this finer shredded hardwood. I think it looks better. I think it looks like a carpet. But I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. And again, you know, when a garden is being tended to, it can be a mess. I left that stuff around. It's cleaned up now. I have 3, 6, 9, 12 shishitos in there. I'm just growing peppers I enjoy. Just dug a hole, basic planting hole setup. I'll be doing a formal video on tomatoes and peppers. But just threw in some stuff, loosen up the soil, drop the pepper plant in, put some of that mulch around there. Water soluble fertilizer. They're going to be great. I was growing more in here before, but I had a little bit of a disease outbreak when they were so planted closely together. Didn't eat them all, so I'm just doing 12 here instead of, maybe it was like 15 or something like that before. Beans that have come up on their own back there, letting them go. Got in my tomato plants, dropped in the basil too. That was basil that I've been growing indoors for a good 60 days. I mean, it looks like it's been out there for a while. A little beat up by the snails and slugs, but I did put the treatment down. Looks like they're getting under control. But 2 tomato plants, 4 in this space. That'll get cleaned up. Have my cherries in here. 1, 2, 3. 1 over here. That's number 4. And that's just going to be taking over this whole cage. In the past, I might have had 6, 8 cherry tomatoes. That was too many. Trying to really match what I'm able to harvest, eat, and give away, so I'm not just losing tomatoes on the ground. Took care of this bed. This bed was covered in weeds. It wasn't really even. Pepper plants in there. Beautiful sunflower that's self-seeded. And you can see just all the strawberries on there maybe. But things are going well. So our temperatures are now back to upper 40s at night, upper 50s, low 60s during the day. I had to pull out all of my radishes. They just got wrecked with the high heat. I mean, this is going to be tons of strawberries. Well, strawberries are on the bottom, but look at all the sunflowers. I told you they were going to get huge. All self-seeded. I've got more coming up back there. That's my current plant. Those are the trees that I need to move. They won't be a problem this year, but I have to get them out of there. Those are tulip poplars. Things look good. This is one of my cool weather crop beds that are left. Lettuce is good. Some radishes in there. But again, with the heat, they're spicy, they're fibrous, they're woody, they're just not good. I'm going to try another round of radishes to see, you know, maybe the weather's going to be weird, it'll be okay. Another cherry tomato plant. I mean, they're coming in really nicely. So the benefit of the warm weather crops are taking off. But this is where I was growing my broccoli. It was covered from the get-go with a shade cloth. This variety already bolted, which is fine. I'm going to just cut this back and I'll dip it into hummus or something like that. Cut the tops off because then you'll get side shoots out like this, so you can continue the harvest of little bits of broccoli. But the ones back there, those are the ones that I wanted to form up better. Maybe they make it a little bit, but they were forming when the heat was around. And even with the shade cloth, the soil didn't heat up that much, but it was like 85 degrees for 7 days, and that was just too much. So I'll get, minor good heads. They're not big enough. They should be like 3 times the size. But I'll have something that I can eat. You can also eat all the leaves. These leaves actually have not been sprayed yet with anything. They have not been dusted, and they're doing okay. The cabbage worms have not taken them over. What else do we have going on? The grapevine is doing nicely. So right in here was the Market More transplant that I put on April 24th. I think today is, well, happy Mother's Day, everybody, actually. Sorry about that. Today is the 11th, or is it the 12th? Today is the 12th. These were seeds that I put in on 410. The seeds survived. They did a lot better. And again, it's putting the seed in, the root system established, the upper growth pops when it's ready, and they did really well. The transplants just got beat up. They were acclimated. They didn't do well. There was really no benefit of me starting these earlier indoors, getting them growing. I just put in the seeds and they turned out really well. In this case, this is a Zuc. I might have it flipped around, but this was a transplant. Did pretty well, but at the same time, let me just check. I don't want to be making up stuff. That was the Zuc that went in. Did I put the date on there? No, it faded. I can't tell. But maybe a week before, I dropped in a zucchini seed into there, and they pretty much look similar. This was the transplant. It's bigger, but just by a little bit. Direct seeded zucchini, you can't really tell the difference, and they both look healthy. They both look great. So you don't have to, if you don't have the room, you don't really have to seed start your cucumbers and your zucchini, your squash, etc. They're going to do really well in the ground. Here's another example of the cucumbers. These were direct seeded, the DS right on there, on 410. They've popped up. They look good. And then this one was put in as a transplant, same time as the one behind me that died off. The transplant struggled. It's not doing much better. When you put in a transplant, it has a smaller root system. That root system has to take care of the green growth while the sun is hitting it and it's doing its thing outside, which, can work out. But make sure that you water this regularly, because it doesn't have a big root system, even if there's water everywhere around here, to really support the growth of the plant. So when you put in a transplant, you pretty much have to water every day or every other day, especially when those temperatures were getting up into the 80s. But again, direct seeded cucumbers, they look great. Those are carrots that I have in there. They're probably aren't going to taste the best, but I'll be cutting this down and making a carrot top pesto. Still have to get to weeding. I couldn't do everything, but the paths look pretty good. To spin back around. And again, I love that shredded hardwood. Fruit tree doing nicely. Bunching onions are starting to come up. In this space, I put down mixed bell peppers. This is going to get mulched over. Gypsy peppers, the smaller type bells, and some Anaheims. I'm really converting things over to the warm weather crops. 3 types of tomatoes in there: Giant Belgium, Green Zebra, Old German. All those I sell at my seed shop. I like growing this group of 9. I have a Pink Oxheart, Golden Jubilee, and Ruby's German. And they were all transplants. Tomatoes and peppers you can do from seed, but transplants tend to do okay. You just don't have to grow them inside for as long as you think. This is a homestead brandywine pink, brandywine yellow. I have more tomatoes that I'm going to want to get out. But, you know, slow and steady. Spinach is starting to bolt. That's going to get cut down. That's 4 endive plants, and I've been harvesting them out of there, and they keep growing back really quickly. So next year I don't need as much endive. That's probably plenty. The butter crunch lettuce is still looking good. All this is going to come out. Radishes, last year's kale. Probably going to put peppers in there. I like growing peppers because I enjoy eating them, but more importantly, I guess, in Maryland, peppers are pretty disease-free. So I'm lucky enough to love peppers. They grow really well in my environment. So I'm not going to underplant them this year. I'm going to plant more than I need. They're easy to give away. People love them. But I don't have to put a lot of work into them. They don't need sprays. They don't really attract any kind of insect around here. Beets, onions planted from seed, and carrots. Now in here, I thought they were turnips, but it was actually mustard greens. I had ants come in, just little tiny ants. They destroyed this whole patch they were trying to colonize. All this area dug up here were ants. They get in under the roots. Certain varieties will eat the roots of your plants, mess up the soil, cause a problem. So every ant isn't necessarily good or bad, but you have to know what they're doing. So I had to, you know, take care of this, treat this, bring out my borax, ant bait mix, etc. I actually put a little bit of spray on the wood so that it doesn't get to the plants, but it would, you know, take care of them crawling around. You don't have to do that. The borax does work. But the infestation was pretty bad, and they were setting up a big colony, and when there's an emergency, I don't mind using something stronger. I missed it, you know, like I wasn't out here enough with the slugs. They did some damage, but things are back under control. This is where I had like 12 endive plants. This is the best. There's a little slug right down in there. This is the best for salads. If you don't mind something that's a little bit bitter, but it's just wonderful. This has all been cut. This is third growth right here. I mean, it's just crazy. So maybe next year I just do an endive patch and some butter crunch. The romaines are looking good. Some of the area that I've been trying to grow kohlrabi now for like 4 years. I used to be able to grow it no problem. So I put it down in here, and first day something came and chewed it down. I don't think it was a rabbit. Maybe it was, one got in here, but a rabbit would pretty much take all this down. There wasn't a lot of food. So I think it was, again, snails and slugs, but they just took out parts of it. Although the chew pattern over there is angled, so I don't know. Maybe it was a rabbit. But I put down 72 kohlrabi, and maybe a third of them have already been chewed down, so we'll see what happens. I was like, all right, you had trouble with it, let's grow a flat of kohlrabi. Perfect use of transplants in the greenhouse. And then here, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, 6 of them are gone. Romaine's looking good. More endive that actually overwintered. Celery's looking beautiful. That is damage. Snails and slugs, but leaf miners get to my beets pretty early, so they're going to have to get a dust on them. But beet leaves can be beat up. I mean, they can get beat up. They can die back. The beets are still going to be good. I'm going to be planting more. All right, so it was a rabbit. Here you go. So those are beet greens that were chewed down. Snails and slugs are not going to do that quick. So I might have a baby rabbit hiding somewhere in here. I have to find it. Parsnips are about to flower. They overwintered. I mean, I didn't get a huge parsnip. Not sure what to do with that, but it'll make great mulch. All right, we're going to spin through the bright sun. But I think, you know, the garden looks pretty good. You're going to have battles with the elements, basically temperatures that you can't do a whole lot about. You know, try your best. The shade cloth just didn't do its trick. I had stuff covered to, you know, block the sun from warming up the soil, and it really didn't help. Rosemary. I'm not affiliated with Slug Magic, but that's where I left it. Luckily I put the lid on, this way the rain didn't get into it. Slug baits really make a difference. Kale's looking good. Horseradish back there. weeded everything out. This is what the peppers look like. So I grew them indoors and then put them in my sunken cold frame. You can look up sunken cold frame on my video or on my channel if you want to see what that's about. But these could just stay outside since the beginning of April in the containers in the sunken cold frame, and they just established these, you know, wonderful root systems. In some cases I do plant 2 pepper plants in one area. They don't get quite as big, but you pretty much almost double the harvest. I had somebody leave me a comment today asking me where I got my research for putting 2 pepper plants together, planting them 1 foot apart instead of 18 inches. And they wanted to look at the research, which is a good question. I think people should, you know, want to find out where you're getting the information from. But I said my research came from really my garden, because I do all the experiments there. So these are banana peppers, 2 per hole. That's probably 1 foot apart. So that's 6 pepper plants in this small space. And I've been doing this for, I don't know, a decade or something. And you really do, you know, almost double your harvest by doing that. You can plant these, you know, 2 per. You can put 18 inches between them if you want more space. You can do 1 plant every 12 inches, but you can plant peppers more closely together than you might think, and you're really going to increase the harvest. This space will be getting all fixed up. I'm not sure what I'll be putting in here, but they're doing well. The peppers, not the peppers, the peas, outstanding. Starting to flower, starting to take off. There's potatoes mixed in there. I'm looking forward to getting the peas. They're going to be wonderful. A little cool weather garden too. There's still radishes in there, but again, they just, you know, change the flavor with the temperature. Peas. In this tower, let me move out of the sun. I have the 15 pepper plants. In this case, you're going to want to plant 1 pepper per pocket. So I have 3 peppers per tier. Each tier is about 7 gallons. So you can judge if you're growing in a container, you have 7-10 gallons of material. You could go ahead and put in 3 pepper plants closely together, and they're going to do just fine. And snails and slugs, that damage, this damage is all from them. But it's no worse than it was a couple days ago, which makes me think, you know, the slug bait worked pretty well. Mixes of flowers, peppers, strawberries. I'm going to be putting these flowers all throughout the garden. Butternut squash is going to be going in there. I put that in there every year. Does really well. There's the bird that's making all the noise. All right, let's take a look. One more thing. So more kohlrabi in here. Like, I loaded up the garden. Even some of that got chewed down. It's just, I don't want to say heartbreaking because that's too dramatic. But I guess my hopes were kind of, you know, crushed when I put out all 72. You know, from leaving my gates open, must have let a rabbit in. It's taken up living somewhere in here and, you know, chewed it down. So you only have to make one little mistake. It can cause a problem. However, no, I'm not going to get 72 kohlrabi, but even with that kind of damage, I'll still get a good amount. So I guess it'll all work out in the end. This is all the stuff I was using to protect the plants from that heat. Coming out here, stuff is starting to get a little bit overgrown, which is okay. Carrots, the sage, love the purple flowers now. Onions, my onions should be more erect, upright. They're flopping over, so I'm wondering if there's some sort of insect root issue going on. I'll see if I can resolve that. Purple top turnip's great. Look at this oregano, which I haven't cut down. I need to do that within the next day or two because it's going to flower. But I'm going to cut this all back, hang it upside down, and just let it dry. So I'm going to wait for the sun today to dry everything. Rain is coming again in the afternoon. But this whole area is filling out. Meadow sage, bunch of baby sages down there. Garlic is looking good. Sometime towards the end of June, I'll be harvesting all that. Oh, here's the mulch. There's one bag left. It's upside down, but Master Gardener shredded hardwood mulch. It's great stuff. 3 cubic feet. I don't know, I think it was $3.99, which isn't so bad. But this is what I'm going to be using. I really like it. I am not affiliated with them. If it's in your area It's a great mulch to use. Used it in here, put down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, maybe 16 pepper plants. I counted too fast. 1 foot apart, leaving the row open, good air circulation. Last year I put in 2 plants. I did 2 rows. The rows are about a foot apart. Didn't need that many peppers. I have poblanos, jalapenos in here, maybe some more shishitos. But cut it down to 16 instead of 32. These are still planted closely together. It's going to be a great harvest. The cabbages are doing okay. Globe artichokes looking good. Potatoes looking good. I'm waiting for the Colorado potato beetle to come out. This is my deer protection. You don't need anything fancy. Now this reduces the deer poking their heads in there. When these peppers get bigger, sometimes they reach over and they chew them. But this is chicken wire right there. It's hard for them to see. They don't want to mess with this. I have some bells on there that rusted. I need some fresh bells. But when they touch this string, it would ring the bells. They don't like that feeling. They just stay out of there. I mean, they could easily bulldoze through that. I've had deer come and chew the potatoes down over there. So this, keeps the deer back. It's not 100% deer proof, of course, but it's a way to manage at a great discount. I don't have to put up a full fence. I'm just using paracord, actually, bells and some chicken wire. And when you step back, if you're worried about how it looks, it's really hard to see the chicken wire and the black paracord. So it kind of creates a fence without it visually kind of disturbing maybe the views you want from your property and stuff like that. Just get a spin around. You can see my property. Get to see my head in a second there. And shadow form. But things are looking good. I mean, really coming in. The lawn, I always look at this as potential compost and fertilizer. Spin back around this way. So let's finish up over there. So I'm pretty much in transition from cold to warm, still holding out hope that I can put in another round of radishes. We'll see what happens. So you saw all the stuff that I pulled out of the garden at the beginning of the second part. And it's wonderful stuff, compost. I'm probably gonna always stress in these videos the old shredded hardwood, which I'll probably throw into my compost that I'm not using anymore. Oh, look at this. Can you see the steam coming up? This is not really hot composting, but when compost gets going, it heats up the microbes. Microbial. I can't say it. Microbial activity. There we go. Creates heat. You're going to see steam. That means everything's decaying and breaking down, and that's really just what you want. I mean, that's awesome. I have more coming off of here. Once these get wet, the microbes start going. They're just breaking stuff down, and compost is what organic gardening is all about. Let's come around this way. All that stuff you saw in the wagon's going to be getting thrown into here. This has ended up being a mix of leaves and grass and just, garden refuge. These are all collards that have overflowered. I've eaten plenty of flowers. Time to get rid of them. This one is staying leaves, and I filled that up towards the end of last year all the way to the top. So it's completely dropped down, but that's a nice cold process. Worms are breaking it down. Different kinds of bacteria are breaking it down. Microbial. No, I still can't say it. So, part of the beauty when doing these tours and talks is, at least for me, is I often get tongue-tied, but you can't let that stop you. Leaf compost. The end of it from a couple years ago. Composting is going to make a huge difference. This is it a tomato plant? No, it's a tree. I'm going to be having my tomatoes starting popping up around here. All kinds of beans come up. Just look how healthy everything looks. I really do like that shredded hardwood mulch. And essentially, taking this look with all of you, this is what I really recommend, is after you do a lot of work, take the time to kind of look at what you've accomplished, appreciate what you're growing, things that you cleaned up, Yes, there's more that I can do, but you really do want to appreciate the work that you're putting into it. And I really love how it looks. That's a lot of people ask, that's a clematis vine down there, those purple flowers. And they can get really big. That's been there for 5 years. You can trim it back, but I love those flowers. They come about now. They add a lot of beauty and color to the garden. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. I'm in the kind of the swing of warm weather crops, transitioning out of the cold weather crops. Some of you are just getting out into your gardens. I know snow is all around. Have fun with it, enjoy, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.